Welcome to Birds Spray Sports, where we weekly cover Ravens and Orioles news weekly. We're your hosts, TJ and Jared. And in this game, we're going to be doing a game recap of our win against the Cleveland Browns, in which we improved to 5-5. So we're on a four-game winning streak. We're trying to run the table for the rest of the way through. It looks pretty good as it stands right now, but we got a lot of work to do, as we'll talk about in this video. And so to get started, I just want to say shout out to the defense. The defense really held it down. And, I was surprised at how at first it was like, okay, bend but don't break. But in the second half, it was just unbreakable. That's what it was. And I was very, very impressed by how they were able to contain Quinshon Judkins. I think he's going to be one of the premier running backs in the league, 1 or 2 years from now. And we were able to contain him. We were able to contain Njoku, who historically has always killed us. He killed us in 2023. He killed us last year. And, we pretty much contained him in both games this year. So shout out to that. But defense really balled out. They got pressure on both Gabriel and Sanders. And, we made them have, very low quarterback ratings. And me and you were kind of joking, about it before the video. But that's really just a testament, to how much pressure we were getting. They weren't turning into sacks like how they were for us on offense, but we were getting pressure to their quarterbacks, and it definitely helped out in a long way. Went a long way in the game. So shout out to that. But I just want to say, one of my favorite moments of the game on defense was when Kyle Hamilton. I wasn't sure if he got a sack or he stuffed a run. I think it was a sack, but when he cut up, he did Shedeur Sanders celebration with the watch, and I was like, he has a lot of balls to do something like that. That's crazy. I would have never expected him of all Ravens players to do it, but he was really getting bold in that game. But shout out to Kyle. Shout out to Nate Wiggins getting his third interception of the year. He's really been locked down, and just shout out to Roquan. And that fourth down play to really end the game, he covered Njoku very tightly. And that was like vintage Roquan right there. He really locked in. This whole unit has been hearing it all year, and rightfully so. They were garbage to begin the year, but they've really put together a good 6 games, including the Rams game. We didn't win, but they played good in that game. So, kudos to the defense. Shout out to them. I just want to ask, hey, what's your thoughts on the defense performance in this game?
Yeah, it was always funny, the past few weeks, it felt like on the very first drive, teams were able to drive the ball on us, and get into field goal range or they're running the ball great, throwing the ball great, but, it was a three and out to start the game, and I believe they were going to go for it on the first drive of the game, but they had a false start or something, or whatever it was that pushed them back, and then they eventually punted. But really, the only defense struggled this game, I think, was on the second drive. I'd noted here that the run defense was struggling on that drive. The Browns ultimately tied the game. And there was only, I think, 3 possessions on the first quarter. Alone, just from all the teams, for both teams combined, and the Ravens really, like locked it in on that play. I thought we were getting plenty of pressure today. Which was something that I noted in the pregame video, how I wanted us to get pressure because of this offensive line for the Browns isn't great, and I thought, I was concerned, where I was like, if they don't get pressure today, then we're done. Like it's just they're gonna get pressure at all this year. But I thought that they did a good job on getting pressure. The defense got put on a shitty position in the fourth drive of the game with the muff punt from Wester. But shout out to the defense, for holding in the three. That was I believe Brent Urban had a tackle for loss in that play, and we eventually stopped them on third and goal, and they had to settle for a field goal.
The
You know,
game really should have been 23-13 then,
the
or,
the
or
ga-
23-10,
the
really,
game,
because
yeah, because defense only gave up what 9 points in the game, so
yeah,
really, so it's just this defense really was put in some crappy positions, but really figured it out, by forcing a lot of three and outs. We should have forced the three and out on one possession until Jake Humble wanted to go off sides and on the punt, which ultimately led them to get a field goal. So they took a 16-10 lead going in a half, I believe. But the defense really in the second half to me it locked in. They really they weren't playing around. And after Dylan Gabriel went out, it was just worse for the Browns. When Shedeur Sanders came in, it was worse. And they were getting sacks on him. Shedeur was holding the ball a little bit long, and that played into it. But
Yeah.
they were just getting a lot of pressure on both him and Gabriel as well, so shout out to the defense for that. Shout out to Kyle Hamilton, man. He's been balling out this year, and he was balling out this game as well. I saw he got banged up a few times in the game, but stayed in the game. He doesn't play, man. He's a hard-nosed football player. I'm really glad that we extended him. I can't wait to watch more football from Kyle Hamilton for the next 4 years, or is it 5 years at this point, I guess now. And he's going to be like a Ring of Honor guy, in my opinion. He may not force a lot of turnovers, but his impact on the field is just immeasurable. Honestly, he's basically the Lamar of the defense. And shout out also to Chidobe
Yeah.
Awuzie. He had a great game as well. He had that big pass deflection on, was it third down? Was it or second or
Third
third?
down. He was on third down. Yeah.
Yeah, he had a big, huge, he had a huge breakup because that would have been a touchdown. The game would have been tied if they would have went for the extra point. I had a suspicion that they'd go for two if they got the touchdown, and try to win the game. Something similar to like how I'm sorry, like how the Bengals should have do last year against us.
Yeah.
I think it would have been the same spot because there's like they're 2-7. Who gives a shit if they don't get it or not? So but I'll say, shout out. He's had a great year, I think, for the Ravens, and he had a great game as well. He was really locking up guys, and it's big that he had a great game considering we didn't have Marlowe a game. I don't know how much of a loss that was, but it already made our big defense look better, But, shout out to Nate for getting the pick. I thought Roquan's been playing great so far down the stretch after, the hamstring injury he had. He had the big, pass deflection on fourth down to end the game. I think that was on Njoku as well, so shout out to him, man. He's really locked in. The rookies have locked in as well. Malachi Starks has really done great. I know Teddy Buchanan's been playing better down the stretch. He had a big play blow up on a screen, early, I think it was I'm trying to look at my notes here. I didn't write it. I wish I would have wrote it down, but he had a big blow up on a screen that I think that was Shedeur Sanders' second drive of the game. But shout out to all guys on the defense. They won us this game. The offense didn't. The offense played like shit. The offense couldn't block, they couldn't run. They could run actually, but they just chose not to. But they couldn't pass. Because Lamar's getting sacked a lot. But shout out to the defense, man. They're really the MVPs of this game.
Yeah, and to move on to the offense, obviously, I feel like this is probably the worst Ravens offense performance I've seen in a while. And,
It was
I'm not,
Garrett Bowman.
I told you, texted you, I'm not counting the Chiefs or Texans game because, to be quite honest, we never were in those games. We were in this game, and just being in this game and having this type of performance was the worst I've ever seen. And, this offensive line, okay, maybe, the other games like the Dolphins game or the Vikings game, maybe there was something to hold your hat on or, hold your head on, after the game. But with this one, I genuinely don't see it. Like, I feel like there needs to be evaluation. There needs to be a move going into the Jets game because they have good, pass rushers themselves. I mean, let's not act like we weren't interested in Jermaine Johnson, just a couple weeks ago before the trade deadline closed. So, an assessment really needs to be made. I don't trust his offensive line moving forward. Not even to help us win one playoff game. But, one player that I do want to shout out, and we talked about, while we were texting watching the game, is I almost said Saquon Barkley because I got the feed going right here. But definitely not Saquon. But one player I want to shout out is Derrick Henry, and he's been struggling a lot this year with his fumbles, with just not really, getting the same results he's had last year. And, he's dealt with that. He's dealt with all the criticisms. He's, talked to the media, unlike other players.
Yeah.
And, just to see him kind of, resurge his season, and play hard literally every game. It's, very impressive to see. It's very, I love seeing it. I love him as a Raven. I love him as a football player. No homo. I just love seeing it on the on the screen every Sunday. So shout out to him. He had a great game this week, very well deserved, and he's really the MVP. Without him, I don't think we win, and that's saying a lot because if we don't have Lamar, we don't win. But if we didn't have Derek today, we probably wouldn't win. And shout out to Zay too. He had a pretty good game. So
Need to
what is
feature
your
him.
thoughts? Who's that?
They need to feature him more.
Yeah, they do, and they should have featured Tez more. I thought he was gonna have a good game, breakout game today, but
I don't even think he played the snap.
yeah, I didn't even never even see him on the field. But
Yeah, like
you
he had
know,
more Tyler Wallace out there than him. I'm like,
yeah, you're throwing goal balls at Tylen Wallace. What are we doing? But what was your thoughts on the offense? Besides the obvious, the O line. You can get into that if you want. But what's your thoughts?
you're throwing a go ball to fucking Wallace is the same shit as throwing it to me out there. That's just it's not gonna work.
Yeah, they
You know.
used to call you Lee Evans, remember? So I know you're
Well,
just.
we don't need to get into that, you ass. That was second grade, you know. Anyways, you know. Anyways, Lee Evans was nice at a point. Fuck, he caught that ball in the divisional round, I think. So
No, 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 no. That was
so at least he could catch
I could
it.
catch
Shit.
that ball like that. Let's not overrate that catch.
Anyways, first of all, before I get started into the offense, congratulations to Mark Andrews. He set the franchise record for receiving yards. I believe that was by Derek Mason. He had a big day, actually, funny enough, and it wasn't really through receiving. It was mostly through rushing, I think.
Yeah,
He had a
yeah.
35-yard rushing touchdown, which if you would have told me that would happen, I would have thought you were fucking crazy. If it was like a 3-yard touchdown, I'd been like, yeah, he probably pushed it in there, but 35 yards, like that was probably our second longest rush of the year for all I know. So like, how the fuckers block for fucking Mark Andrews, but God forbid you have Derrick Henry and they don't know how to fucking block, you know. But
Yeah.
anyway, shout out to him. I was surprised. Not, I was impressed, I should say, with the offense at first. On the first drive, they were, rolling down the field, but then the red zone stuff happened again, where it's just, I thought Lamar missed a few throws in the red zone. That was kind of a tale of the game for me with Lamar. I thought he was missing a few guys. I thought he missed, we just bitched about Wallace. I think he missed that throw. He needs to hit that, I think, better. He missed Zay in an in-breaking route. He threw it outside while he was coming inside. I thought he missed Likely a few times. I thought he missed Andrews once or twice. So, he almost threw a pick, funny enough, I believe, on the play that we wound up tying the game. But
Yeah.
Lamar just didn't have a great day. And a lot of that I felt like had to do with the lack of, pass protection. I mean, but I'll get into that in a second, But after that first drive, it was really slow after that. Lamar had the pick six, it was 13-3. But then we had a big play from Zay after a few good Henry runs, and then we eventually had the Henry touchdown, thank goodness, to get us back into the game at 13-10. But then it just was the same. It was bad pass protection. We couldn't drive down the field, and then we gutted out two drives just to get two field goals. Like that. It needs to be better than this. We
Yeah.
need to be better than this. It's at the point where it's like the red zone efficiency has to be 100 because we're not going to get there a lot. We're not going to get there. That's just the nature of the Ravens. Like if they get
Yeah.
into the red zone, it needs to be 100% touchdowns. Like we need to start putting teams away because a lot of games are going to be like this, and we're not going to win every single one of them. If we keep playing like this. And I'm going to keep saying it. 77 and 72 and even 70. Those three are they're just ass. Like like there's no other way to say it at this point. And I don't mean it, knock on players like this, but like they're just terrible, and look, if you want proof from Harbaugh that they're not terrible, then go watch the Ravens Wired last week and go all the way to the end and listen to what the way Harbaugh talks about the offensive line. He specifically said after that Vikings game, shout out to the offensive line. For what? What are we shouting out? Like that they didn't get hurt? Like what? Like what are we shouting out? Like what? Like, I bet you he said the same shit today. I'm gonna watch Ravens Wired next week. I bet you if he says some shit saying like shout out to the offensive line, he needs to be bitch smacked. Like it's just like what are we shouting out? Like they're terrible. Like look, pay me millions of dollars. I could do just as good as them. Shit. Like if they're gonna fucking do that and get commended for it, then shit, sign me and you up. How about that? Me and you left guard, I'm right guard. Let's let's get paid millions of dollars to suck. So it's just this needs to be a retooling of this offensive line next year because it's bad. It's just bad. And look, this offense should be humming. This should be the best offense in the league without any excuses. But it's not. And the only reason it's not is because we can't run block. We like of course Derrick Henry's gonna break one every once in a while. And if you watch the film on some of Derrick Henry's breakthrough runs, there's still bullshit happening. Flaile's on the ground, Voorhees is on the ground, some guy blows by, Rosengarten or whatever. And it's like It's but Derrick Henry's just Derrick Henry, so he's gonna make it work. But Jesus Christ, this offensive line is so fucking terrible. It's so fucking terrible. And it's annoying because it's like this, like I said, this offense should be miles better than how they are. This Lamar stat line shouldn't look like this for the last 2 weeks, but they do, and I don't know. I feel like I'm getting to the point where it's like, I don't even know what to do. If they really believe that Cleveland is worse, and I always say it, why'd you bring them back?
Yeah.
So it's just, I told you in messages, I'm getting to the point where it's like, I don't bring some random fucking guard in from free agency and work him out and just throw him in there because can it really be that worse? Like, can we really see worse than him? Like, really? Even just a slight improvement is better. Like a Patrick McCarry's better than him. A John Simpson's better than them. That's how bad this is. Now, I'd rather see Tyree Phillips out there. Like this is how bad this is. I wouldn't don't take that seriously either. I really wouldn't want to see him out there either, or any of the two that I just mentioned. But hopefully they aim higher in the off season. But shout out to Mark Andrews for winning us that game. And that they called it the hurricane play. That was a great fake tush push. They said that they just added that to the playbook this week. So good thing it worked. Shout out to Kolar and Ricard, two non-offensive linemen actually blocking, who got the job done. I just feel like they didn't game plan for Myles Garrett at all. I know that's hard, but where are the chips at least, to slow him down, from Andrews or Likely or Henry or whoever. Like it, I don't know. But I don't know how to assess the offense at this point. I mean, next week they'll probably look great, and the week after that they'll probably look even better because they got to play the Jets and the Bengals. But then, what about the Steelers? I mean,
Yeah.
the Steelers defense is buns too, but God forbid,
Yeah, and looking kind of, ahead, we do have the Jets next, Bengals on Thanksgiving, and the Steelers. Obviously those teams are dealing with their own injuries, and it's looking very up, with those matchups. So hopefully we can take advantage of that, and get to 8-5, after those 3 games. That would be big for us, in our playoff aspirations. But just like how you said, still a lot of internal work to go. If we even want to even stand a chance against, some of these teams, still a lot of internal work to go, really.
yeah,
You know, and I hope we can get there. It's not like we can trade any guys. It's just, maybe picking up some free agents and, looking into the practice squad or looking into the depth chart, moving forward. So we're really going to have to find the answers within to, find out how we can make the best offensive line possible. I would like to see Emory Jones. I'd like to see him out there. I would even like to see Cleveland out there to see what he can do. I mean, I don't think he can get any worse than what we saw today, and we still won. So we might as well take the risks while we still have the chance to survive it. So
But the only thing I gotta say about that is it's getting too late. We're in week
yeah,
12 or 11. It's gonna be week 12 next week. Like it's almost to a point where like you gotta rock with what you got, and you can't really do nothing about it.
yeah, and that's true. And that's kind of coaching malpractice that we've kind of, been lackadaisical when it comes to addressing this issue. But, that's sort of EDC. He's just going to have to get better at that next season. We have our gripes with him when it comes to big trenches, and this season has definitely showed it.
Yep.
That's really all that I got to say. I'm just excited for the win here. I believe, I don't really know what your predictions are, but I feel like in my head, I kind of guessed. I feel like, after seeing today's games, I feel like yours probably turn out really good. So hopefully, after this Sunday night game, you catch up to me or whatever. You know,
But you didn't predict anything, so I'm gonna catch up either way.
hey, that ball knowledge is gonna be put to the test here.
But anyways, I guess we can get into the stats now, and then we can close out the video afterwards.
Let's go.
I actually predicted the Ravens to win 24-13, so I wasn't that far off.
Don't give yourself credit. You didn't say that, guys. No,
I did. You watched video, fat.
All right. So starting off with the offense and Lamar at his best game, but Lamar went 14 of 25 for 193 yards, 0 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. So he had his quarterback rating is 47.6, and he was sacked 5 times. Derrick Henry, his best game of the year. Well, no, not his second best game of the year. He had 18 carries for 103 yards and a touchdown, averaged 5.7 yards per carry. Mark Andrews in the infamous Hurricane play. We finally got a new Ravens play with a name now. He has one carry for 35 yards, averaged 35 yards per carry and a touchdown. Keaton Mitchell, we're starting to see a lot more of him sprinkled in there. 6 yards, 31 carries, 5.2 yards per carry. And Lamar Jackson had 4 carries for 10 yards and 2.5 yards per carry. When it comes to the receiving, Zay Flowers had 3 receptions for 78 yards, averaged 26 yards a catch. His longest was 45. Mark Andrews also had 3 receptions for 32 yards. As you mentioned, he broke Derek Mason's all-time receiving record. So shout out to Mark Andrews. Franchise receiving record, but he averaged 10.7 yards a catch. Keaton Mitchell had 2 receptions, one of which was a big, I believe it was second down or third down conversion. He had like a 17-yard catch. So, kudos to him.
Mhm.
Derrick Henry had 2 catches for 19 yards, 9.5 yards per catch. And Rasheen Ali had 1 reception for 15 yards. So, the ball. Oh, and Isaiah Likely had 2 catches for 15 yards, and D Hop had one for 11. So the ball was spread around, pretty well. Everybody got a chance to, make a play, and that's how it went.
Does Likely even have 100 receiving yards on the year?
You think so?
103.
Oh, just exactly 103.
And it's what, 118 now, but
JSN has had that stat line in a single game. It's crazy.
he's not gonna be a Raven next year. Um, Cunningham led the way with tackles, with 9. He had a sack, 3 tackles for losses, 2 passes defended, and a QB hit. That's what I'm telling you. He's balling out, bro. Lloyd Gilman had 6 total tackles. Jadobi Awuzie had 5 total tackles and 3 pass deflections. Nate Wiggins had 4 total tackles, a pass deflection, and an interception. Roquan Smith had 4 total tackles and a pass deflection. John Jenkins had 4 total tackles. Keon Martin had 3 total tackles, a sack, a tackle for loss, a pass deflection, and a QB hit. Teddy Buchanan had 3 total tackles. He had a pass defended, and 1 QB hit. He should have had a tackle for loss. Oh no, the guy dropped it. So never mind. Brian Urban had 3 total tackles. He had a tackle for loss as well. Travis Jones had 3 total tackles. Chandler Martin had 3 total tackles. Malachi Starks had 2 total tackles and a QB hit. And we're getting into that ridiculousness territory. We seen Rashid Ali up here. um, but that's all the tackle leaders for the game. The team stats here for the Ravens and Browns. Ravens had 17 first downs to the Browns only 10. We had 9 passing first downs to their 4. We had 8 rushing first downs to their 5. We had none for penalties and they had 1. We were 5 for 13 on third down. They were 2 for 14. We were 1 for 1 on fourth down. They were 0 for 1. We had 60 total plays to their 54. We had 351 total yards to their 181,
Wow.
187. I'm sorry. We both had 12 total drives. We averaged 5.8 yards per play. They averaged 3.5. They only had 81 passing yards. We had 184 rushing yards. They're 106. We were 1 for 4 in the red zone, and they were 0 for 2. Meaning touchdowns, I guess. We had 4 penalties for 26 yards. They had 5 for 41. We had 3 turnovers, and they had 1. Surprisingly, they won. We had 1. We had 2 picks and a fumble. They had an interception thrown. We had we held the ball for 32 minutes and 59 seconds, and they held it for only 27 minutes and 1 second. So, um, a lot of numbers not on our side there, especially the ones that matter. Thank God those turnovers didn't come to bite us in the ass.
Yeah, and like we mentioned, we got an ugly win. We poured it out, and that's a Ravens win. As some Harbaugh would say, it wasn't pretty, but it's us. It's something like that he would say. But I mean, that's true for this game. So, I don't really have much to say. It's just I want to get on to the Jets game. I want to be 6-5. I want to see the Ravens above 500 for like the first time
This year.
this year. Yeah, the first time this year. So, you know,
We're at 500 for the second time, but now, you know what's funny is we got back to 500 at 1-1 and played the Browns.
yeah,
We
no,
got it again.
yeah, yeah.
That means we're gonna fucking lose 5 games.
No, no, don't say that.
Be 5-9.
Oh my God, bro. But yeah, we're on to we're on to week 12.
What was
Against
that?
the Jets. I don't even know. I was just
Oh, we're on.
you can't talk because I like sometimes you say Shador's name. It sounds like you're saying some Japanese words or something. Like I'm like,
How do I say it then?
he's like Shador, Shador. Like I'm like,
I
come on,
didn't say
bro. Is
that,
he
bro. You're
Japanese?
lying,
Sometimes he's
lying,
black.
lying,
It's like, come on, bro.
lying ass.
But yeah, we're on to week 12 next week. We have a winnable game against the Jets. And hopefully we can do that and handle business. So that's all I got to say. Any last words you got?
Please don't lose to the fucking Jets.
Yeah, don't lose to them. Don't don't embarrass us like that. But we're gonna leave the video off here. I just want to say, first of all, I want to end off the video saying my apologies, for missing the previous videos. Just a tough week, but I'm here now. Jared held down the fort, so shout out to him. He's really been grinding. He's really been grinding with the shorts, and it's his birthday week coming up. So hopefully the Ravens can bless him for birthday
Two
win.
wins.
2 wins. That's what we want to see. 7-5 by the end of his birthday week. So, or week after his birthday week. So hopefully we get that. So yeah, shout out to Jared. Make sure show some love to him down below in the comments. At least one person do it. Come on guys, I know you can do it. So show some love. Also comment down below what was your thoughts of this game. What was your breakout players? What was your predictions that ended up happening? Comment all that down below. Also make sure to follow our social medias, our Instagram, our TikTok, and our Twitter. Me and Jared finally agreed upon we're going to see the Avatar movie when it comes out. So, stay tuned for that on our Casual Cinema channel. Also, check that channel out and subscribe.
I'm only going for
And
Doomsday, bro.
Doomsday?
You don't know.
What?
They're showing the Avengers Doomsday trailer in front of that movie.
Oh, for real?
That's the main reason I want to go.
I thought you really liked the Avatar. That's
No,
why I'm
I
like,
never even seen the
okay.
movies. I might watch the other two movies just so that I can. If we do watch the movie, then I'm not going in there blind. But like, that's the main reason I want to go.
Okay, so we got two things to look forward to that day. So, yeah, we got that coming for Casual Cinema. And yeah, that's all we got for you guys today in this video. For Bird Spray Sports, all right?
Right.